Hi there, and welcome back to the History of Fleetwood Mac. I'm Anita. Today we're going to continue with Volume 15, Episode 5, even though technically this is a little bit more story time. These items are definitely in my scrapbook in this order. Well, just in the Enchanted order, not really in the order I'm doing the videos, but this was kind of a pivotal moment for me in 1998, so I wanted to share with you and the few pictures I have. And I promise I won't make it too long or drawn out. But in 1998, by this time I had met my friend Dawn that I had mentioned before, who really turned me on to going to multiple shows, buying multiple copies of things, etc. And she had found out that Stevie Nicks was going to be in Las Vegas doing the Andre Agassi benefit. And this show was in September 26, 1998. And she's like, we should go. And it had really just never crossed my mind to go to, a show out of town. Shows in my area, Mountain View, Concord, all the Bay Area. Um, sure. I mean, that made sense, but like leaving, it really just didn't dawn on me. A show in Las Vegas or a show in Colorado, those were food people who lived there. It just really, kind of wasn't my thing. Like I could get a ticket or I could go. So it really took me by surprise. And it was something that I'm like, yes, I have to do this. So, it didn't go over well with the ex, obviously. It took some teeth pulling and some begging and, honey, please, things like that. But eventually he consented and was just like, fine, go. And, I never want to make him out to be a bad person. He was always really, really kind to me. And, Anita does what Anita wants to do, basically, but still, you're in a partnership and you don't want to just take advantage of that. But in asking him if I could do stuff as, our money and things like that. So that's all I mean by that. But anyway, so Dawn and I, we went to Las Vegas and she drove and we got like a kind of like a, what do you stay, like a temporary stay kind of hotel. It's like a hotel that had like the kitchen and, all the amenities and such like that, like a little mini apartment. And that was just so we kind of save money on like not eating out a lot and doing stuff. And we kind of didn't really take advantage of it that much. But the night of the show, I want to say we got there the day before, and the night of the show, we started to get ready, and Dawn really always dressed, to impress and went very Stevie-like. And by the time both of us were able to get ready, and we got to the place, and traffic in Las Vegas, and this was 1998. I can't imagine what it's like now, but in 1998, it was still kind of hard to get there. And from where we were at to the MGM Grand, it was a little bit of a distance, parking, all that good stuff. Long story short, we missed Stevie opening the concert with At Last, which is really what we went there for. We went to go see Stevie, of course, but her doing such an odd song. And I'll take the brunt of it. Dawn was pissed. Dawn was really angry, and it seemed that it was me, that was needing to get ready at the end and such like that. And I'm not going to go into it because it's not a bitter thing, but it just a little bit of petulant finger pointing, back and forth, just because we were both really upset. We paid, and hearing Stevie sing an off Stevie song she doesn't do in concert all the time was just really a big deal. So I just know that we were both very upset and just, wanted to blame everything, as to why. And who the hell thought that Stevie Nicks would open the show? So if you know the Andre Agassi benefit, it was a benefit for kids. It was Andre Agassi, who's a tennis player, I guess, in the Grand Slam. And it was a benefit for children. And guests included Stevie Nicks, Lionel Richie, Amy Grant, Dennis Miller, and Robin Williams. And I kind of had to remember a few things before doing this video. And what I do really remember is laughing, like crying, laughing at Robin Williams' part in it when he came out and did a little stand-up. Dennis Miller was pretty funny actually too, but Robin Williams, it just really took me by surprise and was very, very enjoyable. Amy Grant, I know who she is. I remember her in the 80s and stuff like that. Lionel Richie didn't really appreciate at the time so much. Sheila E. was there, and that was really cool. She was just kind of doing backing percussion with everybody. But yeah, those were definitely highlights. Stevie, Mick Fleetwood, of course, and Robin Williams. So we get there, we miss the opening of Stevie doing At Last, but then other people come out and do their parts in the show. And then when Stevie comes out again, she comes out and she does 3 songs with Mick, Carlos, like I said, Sheila E. is on percussion, and she does Dreams, Ran, and Stand Back. And so we definitely got to see that. And my memory of that is a little bit vague. I remember they were kind of different. And I also remember that she wore the red shawl for Stand Back instead of a black shawl. That really stood out to me. That was just kind of unusual. And in reading a couple things and kind of reminiscing, talking to friends about it who had been also, a lot of us really thought that she would go back into Gold Dust Woman, or something, and break out that shawl, but she didn't. She just left that red shawl on. And actually in 1998, you'll see in a lot of photos later throughout the rest of my Enchanted era time, she did wear that red shawl quite a bit. Something we haven't seen in a while. So it's really about the stand back shawl and the blue lamp shawl anymore. But yeah, so we got there, and I just have some really vague pictures. There's really not much. This is our ticket. But what I do have are these amazing photos I took at the show, said nobody. This is her. And you know what? All that matters is that's her. And I took that photo, and I'm proud of that photo. You'll see photos like this. I see my friends Alicia and Shell and all sorts of people take these amazing photos at Damn Near Amy, and everybody who take these great photos at almost every show they go to. And I have a ton of things like this from my early ventures in Stevie scene, and they suck, but I'm just so grateful to have them because I was there and I took it, and that's her. I mean, it's really tiny, but she's visible, and that's all that matters. And then at the MGM Grand, they had up in the kind of the check-in center, they had a TV, all these monitors, and it kept showing a kind of a little collage and about her being a part of this event and stuff like that. And I waited so many times to capture it, to take a picture of it, and I actually got one really good picture. That was my big takeaway photo at Stevie Nicks being at the show. So like I said, the ticket, these two photos, this was, it was in a lot of magazines, the Las Vegas trade magazines and such about the show being there. This was a newspaper article that came out, I want to say the day before or the day after. Yeah, and then these were just some more, again, out of a trade magazine from that time, another little smaller advert for the same thing. Stevie Nicks did end up staying at the end of the show. She kind of came out and jammed with everybody. But what I've noticed at a couple shows where Stevie Nicks jams with everybody at the end is she doesn't really do much. She might be lip syncing, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean she doesn't really come to the forefront and stand out and just do her own thing. She's always kind of in the back with the tambourine and stuff like that. And that's what it seemed like. I don't recall hearing her vocals mixing in with, I think it was All Night Long that Lionel Richie had done at the end. It was always kind of a bummer. I'll mention that coming up again in the Divas Las Vegas. And it seemed like there was one other one where a whole bunch of people were out at the end, maybe the stormy weather. And just like I said, she's there and she's probably singing along, but it's not like, she's at the forefront. And it's kind of a bummer because I was just really hoping to hear overlaying vocals with the songs and just her little take on things. She loves to harmonize and such. So I was just kind of hoping to hear that little extra. And maybe it happened and I just don't remember it. It could be, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. So there were those. There was, I've shown this in the, there's a kind of like a tour book that came with it, a little booklet that I showed on my tour books. And these were the pages that were in there. I had a lot of these extra. So unfortunately, and this one was really damaged. So I tore it up as it is. So this is the same thing that you saw if you saw my tour book section, those videos. So this was just her spot in the little book that came with it. It's not even a tour book, but like a commemorative, booklet that came with it. You had to buy it, and then this was Mick's page in there. And then again, another lineup about who all was there. So after the show, we kind of haunted the place, and we were looking around, and I want to say the show, it said it started at 9 p.m., which, is kind of late anymore. But it's Vegas. And, so it was probably over about 11:30. And so we were waltzing through the MGM Grand all night and just, hoping to see people or just, I had never been to Vegas. That was my first time going to Vegas. And, and then seeing something so cool and, different. I was all about soaking it in and stuff. And sure enough, we passed an area, kind of like a private, I don't want to say high roller, but I guess that's, for lack of a better term, an area that we were confident that was Stevie that was in there that was doing a little gambling. I don't know anything about Stevie and gambling, if she does or not. And she could have just been there messing around with the guys, or I have no idea. But we were sure that it was Stevie. So finally we find somewhere afterwards, after it's dead. There's nobody in the casino, hardly. And even being in Las Vegas, it's just really quiet in there. And finally, we find a place to go and have something to eat. And we're seated in this kind of like an open, area. it's in a restaurant and everything like that, but you're like in the casino, like you could see all the tables and the machines and stuff like that. But but then you look across another way and there's more seating area, etc. And who should walk in but Carlos, Mindy, and Sharon? And we just about lost our mind. And if we're sitting here, they sat like way across from us. There's, we could see them. And we're basically like the only two tables. I mean, there's a couple more, but like they're so far away, going in the other direction from us, they were far away, and going the other direction from, the band, they were far away. So like we were kind of right there. Dawn was real ballsy at the time. I'm ballsy now, but I was not at the time. And she had met them somewhat recently. And I forget why. I don't remember if it's when she met Stevie or it was another show or something like that had happened. But she just like, I said, oh, I know what I said. I said, her and I don't know if we both decided or I decided or whatever, to send a drink. And I wrote a little note on a cocktail napkin for Sharon. And we sent it over to the band, and they were kind of like looking around, and I'm like looking at a menu and stuff like that. And I'm following them, and then they look over at me, and I'm like, I just don't want to be seen. I just don't know what to do and how to take it all in. And but Dawn's like, she's checking it out, waiting for them to notice us, and they call for her to come over there, and I just was frozen. I just sat there like a dumbass. And, but Dawn, she just popped up and went right over there, and she gets to talking to them. And, she's as outgoing and characteristic as I am. And so, next thing you know, they're blah, 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 blah. And they're like, oh, this and that. And they're hugging her like they're old friends. And then finally she looks over at me and she's like, get over here. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. So by the time she had spoken to them, we had talked, I had talked with the band like, for a nanosecond, but I'm trying to stand there and not be too stupid looking, just with my jaw open and such. Just, I've seen them. I've, waved at them. I love Sharon. Mindy, I really like Mindy a lot. And Carlos is just, damn near as good as Waddy. I mean, they're staples of Stevie's career and people who've been with her and performed with her and her friends for so many years. It was really a monumental thing. And so we finished talking with them, and I did get them a drink, and they were very appreciative and really nice and stuff like that. And that was my big spending. Like I bought nothing else because it was like, drinks in Vegas, they're not cheap. And I'm not being a cheap bro or anything like that. But at the time, like I had this much spending money, and it was everything I could do to get the ticket and go on the trip, let alone, do things like that. And so they were really super nice. And at the end, we were able to get a photo with them. And that just, the peak. I mean, it was years later before I met Stevie, but at that time, it was really the peak. So this is our photo with the band here that happened that night. This was a photo of me getting ready earlier that night. And then I just, made some poker chips. The MGM Grand is not there anymore. So it was kind of a nod to the old MGM Grand. This is the little map that we got, where you walk in the entrance and where the show was at. And then 2 more pictures, 2 great photos. Try not to laugh too hard, but you can see her. You can see the girls, right? There's Mindy and Sharon, and there's Stevie. Uh-huh. Right? These are copywritten, folks. Don't steal. And you could just make her out there as well. And our seats really weren't that bad. I just had, this was before phone cameras, so I had some podunk camera, that was just not meant to be. We're in upper 203 row A, so we're at the front of wherever we were at, but it wasn't that bad. I mean, 203 sounds like far away, but it was pretty damn good seats. And it looks like we paid $30 whole for those tickets. $30. I mean, amazing, right? And this was a little brochure. Stevie Nicks is not mentioned here, and it was really kind of a bummer, but this little brochure, I would have taken out and shown you guys, but like I said, there's nothing about Stevie, but a lot of things were donated, for auction and such to raise money for this, not just this concert and such, but this had all the items that were auctioned. And I was really surprised that Stevie nor Mick or anybody donated anything, like no handwritten photo, hand signed photo, anything like that. But people, Robin Williams, I think had lunch with him or something. And there's some really great stuff, but nothing with Stevie or Mick. So that's why I just have it like that. But it was a really cool little brochure to get. And I got this by way, I wasn't supposed to have one of these. Like, this is for people who were going to be buying stuff. This is like the little catalog and stuff. And I don't remember how I got this, but I did get it at the show that time. Maybe I picked it up, or I don't know. But so that is my little story of my first adventure in Stevie, going elsewhere for a show. And it was really the start. After this, there were so many road trips thereafter, and I've only gone as far as Colorado for a show, and then of course all up and down California, Washington, Oregon, Nevada, and stuff. So yeah, there's some really awesome moments, and like I said, I have quite a few bit more after this. It just seemed like next thing you know, I was just going to so many shows and things, but this was really just a pivotal moment, and part of the Enchanted era time. So I just thought I'd share that with you. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.